Hello, Internet! Welcome to yet another very special episode of Game Theory where we are celebrating our 10-year anniversary here on YouTube. 10 years of ruining your childhood, 10 years of me making myself look like an idiot on the internet. Today is an episode that not many of you are clicking on, but hey, the ones who are here clicking on it, thank you. Thanks for clicking on this episode. I really appreciate it because this one's a special one to me. The first ever episode of Game Theory ever remastered. This is when I was operating off of a $20 microphone in a closet that I couldn't even fit in, using an editing program that just came as a default program on my really bad computer at the time. So today we're glowing it up. We're giving it the glow up treatment. That's the word. Consider this kind of a remastered edition mixed with a little light director's commentary because, oh boy, as I was rewriting this script, man, this is just full of cringe. These videos have transformed so much since the early days. Anyway, sit back, relax, and enjoy the throwback to an era of YouTube where a 5 to 7 minute long video was considered long. So I guess this is a nice break for the editors after last week. It's a shorter episode, but man, it better look good. So here we go, friends, our remastered edition of Game Theory Episode 1 from 2011, Chrono Trigger Time Travel Truths. Wow, what a terror. Even my titling was bad back then. Strap into your DeLorean and accelerate to 88 miles per hour, because we're talking about time travel. Internet, welcome to Game Theory, gaming's tangential learning experience. Hey, look at this. The opening line has persisted since episode 1. Through these videos, we hope you'll find more reasons to appreciate some of your favorite games while sparking some interest in new real-world topics. On this, our inaugural episode, we'll be looking at one of my all-time favorite RPGs, Chrono Trigger, and analyzing what, if anything, the game can teach us about its core gameplay mechanic, time travel. Am I gonna interrupt this as much as this? I didn't intend to. There's a lot of clauses inside of the sentence structure, and I think that's what's throwing it off. I think I've learned to simplify my sentence structure over the years. Here, I wrote it like a traditional 5-paragraph essay, but actually I've changed that writing style so it's easier to read. We'll start off by looking at the first method of time travel used in the game. The adventure kicks off with a science experiment gone wrong. Take one teleportation pod, throw in a magical pendant, and bada bing bada boom, you've accidentally torn the time-space continuum. The characters eventually refer to these fourth-dimensional portals as time gates, but is it fact or fiction? Are there any real-world equivalents of these phenomena? Well, Square, Chrono's developer, knows what they're talking about because, believe it or not, there have been reports of real-world time gates. They're officially called time slips, paranormal events where a group of people travel through time via an unknown, accidental, or mystical way. The reports are, well, I'll let you be the judge. This link... Hold up. Okay, in the original video, I show up a YouTube link because annotations didn't exist at the time, or maybe I didn't know annotations existed at the time. Anyway, I show a link on screen as if I expected people to actually type in, letter by letter, this link to watch about time slips. Oh, baby MatPat, what were you thinking? This link will take you to some videos outlining a few of these stories, specifically one from 1979 about a time-trippin' hotel. Chrono's time gates are also very reminiscent of wormholes. Specifically traversable wormholes, a theoretical physics concept that's thought to serve as a shortcut through time and space. The Morris Thorne wormhole, the first ever proposed, was thought to be held open by some spherical exotic matter, and surprisingly looked very similar to the ones found in the game. Point Chrono. This is probably a good time to talk about this, but back in the earliest days of game theory, the thought of the show was that it was basically just gonna be research papers with light connections back to the video game. But you know, we weren't trying to prove anything. The theory element was actually something that I figured out along the way, like, hey, we need a so what. There needs to be some conclusion to the educational story that I'm drawing you through. So the theories actually, surprisingly, came later. That covers one mode of transportation found in the game, but what about the time machine, the aptly named Epoch? Well, to analyze this, we need to examine how it works, and to do that, let's look at its animation. When you set a course for another era, the Epoch speeds up, presumably flies around the world because it disappears on one half of the screen only to reappear on the other side, and then vanishes vanishes into a flash of light. So how accurate is it? Once again, I'm happy to say that it's really not that far off from the truth. According to Einstein's theories of relativity, if we could achieve a speed approaching the speed of light, a dilation of time would occur, causing time to pass slower on the moving body relative to that on Earth, technically making it possible to travel into the future. So let's take it one step further. Does the Epoch actually reach these enormous speeds? The whole animation takes 3 seconds, so figuring that the circumference of the Earth is around 24,900 miles, or 40,072 kilometers at the equator, you're traveling at speeds around 8,300 miles per second. That's 29,880,000 miles per hour, or 48,087,198 kilometers an hour. And this is something that I learned over the years. There are viewers who watch this show that aren't in America, so let's talk about normal metric conversions as well. Now compare those measurements to the speed of light, which is 186,000 miles per second, or 1,079,000,000 kilometers an hour, and you can see that Chrono and the gang don't come close. But I would hazard to say that even at their speeds, some time dilation effects would occur. I also leave a lot more room in the scripts now for ad-libbing as opposed to back in the day where this is how it's written, I'm gonna read it word for word, and this is precise. Nowadays, I realize that having a more casual feel to it makes a big difference. It's more fun to listen to, it's more fun to record, something that, again, I just had to learn over the years. Oh man, here we go. I thought I needed different segments within the episode itself, because I grew up on Bill Nye the Science Guy, and I'm like, oh, Bill Nye had cool segments that would show up in episodes, so here we go. And now it's time for a segment I like to call Deep Thoughts in Gaming. This week's Deep Thought, it was gonna be a regular thing. This week's Deep Thought is a point in the Chrono story that I skimmed over when I was 9 years old playing the game for the first time. Let's set the scene. So upon arriving in the Middle Ages, your party member Marl from the present is mistaken for the kingdom's kidnapped queen. Thinking that their lost queen is returned, the medieval search party ends, thus ensuring the death of the real queen. As a result, Marl, who is really a princess and the descendant of the lost queen, disappears completely. In essence, what my impatient 9-year-old mind couldn't understand at the time was the game designers setting up what's called a grandfather paradox. It goes something like this. A time traveler goes back in time to kill his grandfather before the grandfather meets his future wife. This murder would then prevent one of the time traveler's parents from being born, and thus the time traveler himself from being born, which in turn means that he could never go back in time to kill the grandfather in the first place. It's tricky, right? But what's it mean? Some use the grandfather paradox as evidence that time travel is impossible, while others, like physicists Igor Novikov and Kip Thorne, resolve the paradox by proposing that any time travel must be self-consistent. That is, anything a time traveler does has always been a part of history. In other words, that past events cannot be changed, only altered toward the same conclusion. So when Chrono and the team rescue the real queen, they preserve the original timeline, but alter slightly the way it was achieved. What? What does that even mean? I think when I wrote this, I wrote it in a very superficial way because I didn't really understand it. And so I'm like, oh, if I use this in a very vague way, I'm gonna technically be right, but also not be wrong. So cringe. There is, of course, a third option, the possibility of parallel universes and alternate timelines, but now's not the time to touch on string theory. We'll save that for when we talk about Kirby's epic yarn. Ba-doom-ching! All right, let's wrap this thing up with the most cringeworthy part of all, and now it's time for my final thought. This is also the thing that showed me the power of analytics, and this is what really got me into the data side of YouTube. I looked at the analytics that show where viewers drop off, and I saw every time that I mentioned MatPat's final thought or showed the graphic, viewers would drop off. So the next episode, I wanted to run an experiment, and so I eliminated MatPat's final thought, but I wrote it the same way. I wrote the conclusion just like I would. I just eliminated the line in the graphic, and the retention stayed through to the end of the video. And that showed me the power of YouTube analytics and how they could shape my episodes to better match the way people wanted to watch them. Thus started the ball rolling into where I am today, where everything has been tested and we consult other YouTubers for the past 10 years on how to do it, and it all started because of MatPat's final thought. To this day, I love Chrono Trigger, and still do a decade after as I remaster this episode. The time mechanic is ingenious and brilliantly implemented. The story is epic, and the worlds you explore are all fully realized. But beyond that, we've seen today that it definitely provides a fairly accurate portrayal of time travel as it's currently envisioned. But here's the take-home question, is it possible? Will we be able to fly to the past to save our prehistoric ancestors, or just jump forward to fight in post-apocalyptic futures? The answer to that comes in two parts. Probably not, and maybe, but probably not. It's currently unknown if backwards time travel is possible. Just look at the grandfather paradox and you'll see just one of its many complications. Stephen Hawking, the famous theoretical physicist, said it best, quote, "If travel to the past is possible, then where are all the tourists from the future?" Well, it's either that it's not possible, or we live in a time that no one wants to visit. So seeing dinosaurs or visiting King Arthur's court probably won't be happening without going to a museum, but that doesn't rule out time travel completely. Einstein's theory of relativity showed the world a possible doorway to the future, and some small-scale experiments have actually verified that velocity-based time travel is possible. In short, there's a lot of complicated theories, and we're a long way off technologically, but who knows what tomorrow may bring. I mean, you don't find the time machine in the game until the year 2300, so we have ourselves a while to wait. Then again, the world was also supposed to end in 1999. Anyway, what comes next? Only time will tell. Thanks for watching. There was no but hey, that's just a theory, a game theory. What episode did that start in? I gotta look it up now. Anyway, it's just a theory, a game theory. Episode 3 does it. Okay, so we know by episode 3 it's a line. Let's see what episode 2 does. It's just a theory, a game theory. There it is! Episode 2 did it! Wow, by episode 2, a lot of the tropes of this show were just locked in place. Man, that's wild. And to be fair, looking at these old episodes, like, I've grown a lot as a writer, as a producer, as a human, right? Like, I look back at these old episodes and they're very much of the time, right? Like, back then, this was the era of boob thumbnails, fart humor, immature humor, you know, sensibilities have changed a lot, and what is and isn't acceptable to say and make jokes about has changed a lot. And so I look at these old episodes and I'm like, oh, that's not in good taste. I've matured and grown as a human looking back at these. On one hand, I'm proud of the show that we've made, but I'm also not proud of some of the ways it was presented at times. And I think it's fun looking at these early episodes and being like, wow, you know, that was a snapshot of me when I was early 20s, you know, just kind of starting to explore what it means to be an adult, just starting to learn what it means to find your voice in a video format and, you know, to create a show from scratch. It's really interesting, and I'm so proud of how the show has grown. I'm so proud of the team that we've been able to build, and I love all the people that I get to work with on a daily basis, whose creativity I get to highlight alongside mine at this point, because it really is a collaborative effort. I think a lot of YouTube is a collaborative effort, certainly, whether people will admit it or not, but especially on this channel, like, there's no way that we'd be able to do these theories at the rate that we do these theories if it wasn't for just a bunch of people who love what they do, working tirelessly week in and week out. And, you know, I'm so much happier with the stuff that we're putting out than when I was just doing this on my own. And I know that there are people out there who are like, oh, I miss the old days of game theory, and I get why, but I also think that we're just able to deliver something that is so much better researched, so much better explained to you, so much more entertaining than what I could do on my own back then. Thank you for being a part of my growth. Thank you for giving me a platform with which to grow and learn and being with me every step of the way. Next week is a more typical game theory. We're taking a break from the anniversary stuff just to give you here's a game theory in the traditional sense. So in the meantime, guys, this first episode is the only one that doesn't have it, so it's time we corrected that injustice. But hey, that's just a theory. A game theory. Thanks for putting up with this cringy mofo for 10 years.